You resorting to physical discipline is not the key. Because what the child learns is when someone makes me mad, when someone doesn't listen to me, when I get angry and upset, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to do the same thing that I see my parents do to me. I'm going to put these hands on 'em. Baby, you go home and put yourself in timeout. If you're not having a good day, don't you go mess up somebody else's day. Okay, welcome back to the Kitchen Table Podcast. This is week number 12. And this month, the month of April, is Child Abuse Awareness Month. So I'm going to take a break from just talking about mental health. And even though some of this is going to be integrated in here, but we're going to be focusing on child abuse. And so I do a free parenting class. And so this is the class that I teach parents. And so the name of the parenting class is Kids Saftey. And so I am your host, Jannetta Brass. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And the reason why I wanted to focus on this month is so that I can bring more awareness to what child abuse is. And so sometimes in different cultures, and I will say my culture, what we consider discipline is really abuse. And so I don't know if you guys like be on social media and y'all strolling through and stuff, and people be saying, this soft parenting stuff not working. They behinds beat. They need a belt or something like that, because what they are wanting from their kids is to immediately obey and behave the way that they want to without any questions and without, saying anything. And it's just like being in the army, when they say march, left, right, left, you just do whatever they tell you. So that's what most parents are expecting. And it's just like, hey, if I tell you that you go to school and don't you cut up, because you cut up, this, that, and the third is going to happen. So you're expecting for them to go to school and to behave. And as always, y'all, we always going to test the boundaries and things. And so kids do test boundaries. But I wouldn't call it soft parenting. I will call it smart parenting. So the next couple of weeks, probably the next 2 or 3 more podcasts, we're going to be focusing on child abuse. So kids safety. I'm going to play this little right here. It's called Child Abuse and Neglect. So that was just a video to kind of explain to you guys what is child abuse and neglect. And so I'm just going to kind of go off of my facilitator notes that I have for this class. And what is child abuse and neglect? So abuse is defined as doing something harmful, while neglect is not doing anything in the care that could or does cause harm. So there's 2 different things. And sometimes people use them interchangeable, but they're not. When you abusing someone, that is your intent to cause harm. And when it's neglect, it means that you're not doing what you're supposed to do to care for the child or the children, which causes harms. So children that are at high risk of abuse are those who live in single parenting households, poverty, and domestic violence, foster care, and have limited or no community resources, having a disability, and having parents with mental issues. So when we look at what child abuse and neglect is, I do want you guys to know that sometimes people use those interchangeable, but abuse is defined as doing something harmful. And so my intent is to cause harm, while neglect is not doing anything in the care that could or that does cause harm to the child. So when we talk about child abuse and the high risk, children who are at high risk of experiencing child abuse and neglect are children who are in single parent homes, who are in poverty, domestic violence, foster care, and have limited community resources. Kids who have disability, and kids who have parents with mental issues. And just because you may have mental illness, does not mean that you can't be the parent that you need. What happens is that if you have mental illness and it's not being taken care of, then it really has a great impact on how you care for not just yourself, but also for your children. We're going to go to this next slide, which is also saying the same thing about abuse and neglect. And there are 4 types of child abuse. We have sexual abuse, there's physical abuse, psychological abuse, and neglect. And we're just going to go into these different types and kind of break them down, okay? So, bear with me for a moment. Sexual abuse. So when we're talking about sexual abuse occurs when a dependent, developmental, immature children or teenagers engage in sexual acts that they do not completely understand, cannot consent to, or that goes against social norms around family responsibilities. So it can be oral, it can be anal, it can be vaginal penetration. It is not always necessary in the case of sexual abuse, but other behaviors that may be involved includes fondling the genitals, contacting, having that contact, and then exposing, the genitals, and also just pornography pictures, porn and showing them to children. All those are different types of sexual abuse that we do that falls up under that. Now, physical abuse. Some forms of physical abuse could be biting, it can be burning, shaking, and hitting. And it's not clear what level of physical treatment counts as abuse, but it has been founded that rib fractures are the most common injuries linked to physical abuse. I want to pause on this for a minute because when we talk about physical abuse, I do know that in my community, in the Black and brown communities, physical punishment is always what most people in my community use. And so I know growing up, look, when I got in trouble, if my mama got me, because in my community we call them whoopings. So if I got a whooping, I had to go and get the switches. And if I didn't go get it, my mama would send my brother out to go get the switches. And she would tie 2 of them together. They'd be this long. And when she get finished, that means that she probably had this much left. My dad, on the other hand, he made a board out of 2x4. It was real thick. And so when he whooped us, it's like we had to bend over. So some of y'all grew up in the era where at school it's called corporal punishment, and the teachers were given permission to paddle your child. And so I got a lot of them growing up. But my daddy also had a board too. So it's like you bend over and he'll take it and he hit you as hard as he can. Now me, I always fell out every time I got a hit, and it took me forever to get back up. But those are what I want to say about that, though. Most people say, well, that's what it took for us to obey and for us to be respectful and listening and stuff. And I really want you guys to think about that, because I think I've said this in a couple of the podcasts before. When I'm saying that parents have to model the behaviors that you want your child to have. So if every time your child get in trouble, every time they don't listen, every time they disobey you, every time they get you upset and angry for whatever reason, you resorting to physical discipline is not the key. Because what the child learns is, when someone makes me mad, when someone doesn't listen to me, when I get angry and upset, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to do the same thing that I see my parents do to me. I'm going to put these hands on you. So sometimes it may be some hands. It may be some fighting or whatever. But that's how they learn that. And that is not good for the child. There are other ways. And once again, in the Black community, we learned that type of discipline from our slave masters. And so that's what the slave masters did to keep the slaves in control. So that was one of the many things that they did. And so I don't know if you guys ever watched the movie called Roots and other different ones. There was one that Jamie Foxx played in. I can't think of the name of it, but yeah, Django. And I remember him doing an interview, and it was a scene where they were whipping one of the slaves. And I remember him talking about this scene because it was, man, it mentally like got to the people. So to make that scene go a little bit better, they played Fred Hammond's No Weapon Formed Against Me while they filmed that. And so what I want you guys to understand that when the slave masters used physical corporate punishment to punish the slaves because they didn't obey, they tried to run away, they asked questions, and that was like a no-no. And so they would tie them up, and the whole village would have to come and watch. Now, these is kids, grown people, have to sit there and watch them literally beat them until their white meat shows. Sometimes they got it so bad that it literally killed them. But when they got through beating them, the ones that survived, it would be probably weeks before they can actually heal. And so that was just traumatizing in themselves. And I just kind of want y'all to kind of understand where most of the Black community has gotten their how they learn how to discipline. So that stuff has been incorporated within our us raising our children, which is not good at all. We're going to go to the next one. And this next one is called psychological abuse. So psychological abuse, in my opinion, has to be worse than physical abuse. Psychological abuse is not necessarily something that you see. Psychological abuse, it tears you down. It does not build you up, and it causes you to have low self-esteem and to think of yourself in a very, like a monster, like you don't have any good thoughts about yourself. Once again, when we talk about the Black community, that's what the slave masters did. And I know y'all probably getting tired of me saying this, but I want everybody to really understand how slavery and Jim Crow still impacts our community today, while everybody else is trying to make y'all be quiet about it and say, oh, that happened a long time ago. They don't have nothing to do with it. It still impacts us today. And really, some of this stuff really happens today, but in a different form. But when we talk about psychological abuse includes bad words. Like some of y'all parents that be sitting up there calling your kids these words. I didn't see parents call their daughters and their sons. I didn't see them call them bees. And we all know what I'm talking about. I can't say the word, but yeah, you didn't call them bees. You didn't call them hoes. You didn't told them they wasn't worth nothing. They ain't no good. They just sorry. Y'all, those are all bad words. And so what that does, it doesn't help with their self-esteem, and it doesn't give them confidence. Making fun of a child. So teasing them. Anytime that you make fun of people and you tease them at someone else's expense, that is considered abuse. And so you guys know, probably a couple of podcasts ago, I had told you guys that I stopped wearing a prosthetic eye. So I will have to say that me growing up, when I went to school is when I started getting made fun of. And so before I went to school, everybody that I grew up around in my neighborhood, we all grew up together. So it was like a norm. It was normal to see me with just one eye because that's how I was born. But then when you go to school and other people haven't seen that, they're looking at you. But I was made fun of all the time. And it was so bad that I could just remember being probably as young as 5 and 6. Every night I go to bed and I pray and ask God to let me die because I did not want to go to school because they would tease me. Now, did I let them tease me and me not do anything? No, I put them hands on them. And it was like every day was a battle. So it was a lot of energy. It's like, man, Who didn't say it this? I got a whole list of everybody who I'm getting ready to put these hands on, for teasing me and messing with me. And doing things that scares or terrify them, which can lead to mental illness in the future. So psychological abuse is really bad. Um, and I want you guys to go and just kind of research it a little more. And parents, if you have little kids, if you have teenagers, I am going to need you to learn a different way. There is a better way. And I am so tired of us parents saying, oh, we did the best that we can. It's time for us to do better, you guys. And that means that I'm going to do better than what my parents did for me. I'm going to do better than what my grandparents did for my parents. And doing better means go take a parenting class. Go get those tools and those skills that you guys need, because that's the only way that you're going to learn. Go to this next slide. And neglect. So when we, once again, talk about neglect, it is the lack of proper medical care, education, supervision, safety from environmental dangers, and meeting basic needs like food, clothes. These are all examples of neglect. Now, most of the time, children are abused by being ignored too. And so sometimes when we talk about neglect, I know we have parents who, some of them like, hey, I don't want my kids to go to school and I'm just going to keep them home and homeschool them. And it's just like, okay, did you finish school? How well did you do in school? And then the way that they're teaching kids this way, do you really understand it? And so sometimes they'll have their own agenda as far as education, and the kids are not getting properly educated. And so that is a form of neglect. Properly medical care, making sure that your kids are getting their weekly welfare, their yearly welfare checks, and also making sure that they go to the dentist. So when you're not doing that, that is a form of neglect. And sometimes I've seen some parents who have assistance for medical for their kids, but for whatever reason, they will not take them to the doctor. And then I do know, well, let me back that up a little. Sometimes if the child is being physical abuse and there are bruises that anyone can see, rather if they know that there's some internal bruising that they know may have happened that they're caused to the child, they will not go and get medical care for them because they know they will be at risk of being exposed. So, basic needs like food, clothing, all those are examples and stuff. And making sure that your kids get the nutrition that they need. So you just don't want to just do food. Yeah, I buy food, but okay, what type of food are you buying? Are you just buying all the sugary, hot and spicy stuff? Are you really having well-balanced foods for the kids so that their health can be well? And making sure you go to the dentist. How many people, I remember growing up, seeing a lot of kids that had a mouthful of caps. And so y'all know what caps are. And back then they were silver. And so they'll put these caps over the kids' teeth because they was rotten. And sometimes it will happen before the permanent teeth comes in. So making sure that you guys are really taking care of your kids and not ignoring them and taking care of them the best that you know how. So if you know you don't have enough food, go to the food bank. There's a lot of food banks around now. And I know today's climate, there has been a lot of funding taken away from a lot of different, resources to help people in the community, but there are still some food banks. There was a point in my life that I literally went to the food bank probably every week, every other week. So I've been in line at some food banks. And then learning to where can you shop to make your money stretch. So a lot of people are like freaking out because, a lot of people losing their jobs. Their income has changed. Some going from two incomes to one, and some just like no income. What are we going to do to make it? And so probably why you don't see a lot of black and brown people just freaking out right now is because, hey, this is nothing new to us. we know how to make it stretch. And so one of the things that you guys can do to make sure that you do have food and stuff, learning how to cook like 2 and 3 day meals. So, you can do a big old pot of spaghetti that can last for a couple of days. You can do a big old pot of chicken, rice, and broccoli casserole, and that can last for a couple of days. And so just trying to figure those things out. Okay, how do I keep food and how I can make it stretch? And you want to make sure that you also go into stores that you can afford that's going to give you a lot for your money. And Aldi's is a real good place to go. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is the long-term impact that child abuse has on the kids. So abuse of any kind has the potential to cause permanent harm. So the impact of child abuse extends beyond just physical scars. The child may have psychological difficulties, encountering challenges with trust, feelings of worthlessness, low self-esteem are often experienced, and the child may demonstrate challenges in regulating their emotions. So, a lot of adult clients that I have had that are deal with a lot of mental illness, a lot of it had started in their childhood. They have experienced a lot of child abuse. And so parents, I just want you guys to know, let me go back just a little about neglect. It's more than just you being physically present in your child's life. You have to be more than just physically present. You have to have a connection with them. They need some type of guidance. They need structure. They need things to kind of guide them along and to help them. And when you're not doing that or giving that to your child, then what happens is that they end up feeling worthless. They end up having low self-esteem, and they also end up being depressed because it's like they're by themselves and they got to try to figure it out themselves. And it also can make them have feelings of rejection because my mom or my dad are not involved in my life the way that I need them to be. They need you to show up. But once again, you only can give to your children what was given to you. And so we learn how to parent by watching our parents. And if we did not have good parents that knew how to parent well, then you're doing the same thing that your parent has done. And so you really need to go and invest and go take some parenting class. Children are subject to abuse, develop toxic levels of chronic stress. Other stressors, such as positive stress, can be beneficial for the child development. For instance, the process of transitioning to a different academic institution might be anxiety-inducing. However, it imports valuable lessons to a child on the art of forging new social connection and adjusting to unfamiliar circumstances. So I know a lot of adults that do not like to socialize in public. They do not like social settings. It freezes them up. They don't like to be around a lot of people. And the reason why is because they don't have a positive outlook about themselves. They really don't know who they are. And so because they don't have a lot of confidence, they really don't know who they are. And the only thing that they know is what their caregivers or their parents had told them. And if you was not nice to your children and you always had something negative to say, you had something bad to say about them and to them, once again, y'all remember I said it deals with their self-esteem. So if they don't have a healthy self-esteem, they don't have any confidence in going and socializing and interacting with other people. And I will say this too, technology has really advanced. So to some of y'all parents are allowing the technology to babysit your kids. They constantly on their laptops. They constantly on their tablet, on YouTube, strolling and watching this and that. And if they're not doing that, they playing games and stuff. And so, y'all, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. It's not, but you have to learn how to do things balanced. You gotta balance it out because too much of anything is deadly. It is not good. And so I read an article probably about a month ago where they're talking about the recent 2024 college graduates, how they are getting jobs coming out of college, but within 6 months or less, they're having to let them go. Y'all want to know why? Because their failure to know how to communicate and interact. And so when you let electronics guide your child, they don't know how to hold conversations. They don't know how to interact with others. So they don't know how to socially engage in those skills that you need if you're going to be out in the workforce. Another complaint that they had was they did not go by the dress code. It was hard for them. Either it was hard or they just didn't understand or didn't want to do it. So they was continuously being on them about the dress code. And then they just didn't have no get up and go. It was just like they didn't have no zeal behind or no passion behind what they were doing. So it did not enhance the company as a whole. So they have been letting them go. Let's go to the next one. Okay, what are the long-term impact on the kids? And we just went over some of the long-term impact, and I just want to share this video with you guys for you guys to just just listen to it and understand the long-term impact. This is going to end this particular podcast. And so the next one I'm going to do is going to be about sexual abuse. But I do want to encourage you parents to please pay attention to this. And I want you to really process and think about how you're raising your child. And no, parenting does not come with a book. We don't have a guide, but there are a lot of parenting classes that you can take to understand, to get the tools to be the best parent that you can be, because this is who's going to be running our society when they get older. And so you want to invest more into substance and then things. When I say substance, things that they can use for the rest of their lives. Hey, I learned this, and this is something that I'm going to need even after I get grown and get on my own. And so those things are more important than just buying them a lot of stuff. So I hope this podcast, hope it was informational for you. I hope it was very education for you as far as the difference between abuse and neglect. And just go out there and remember to research everything that I am telling you, so that you know that if what I'm saying is true or not. So just don't take my word. Go out there and research. And as always, thank you guys for tuning in, and go and have a great day. But if you're not having a great day, in Tabitha Brown words, don't you go mess up somebody else's day. And in my words, go put yourself in time out until you calm down, and then you can reconnect. Until next time and next week, I'll see you guys, and y'all have a great rest of your week.